Apple announced new hardware and software updates at its developers conference, including its long-awaited augmented reality headset. We'll discuss the highs, lows, and everything in between in this episode of Today in Tech. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Joining me to discuss the WWDC announcements is Ramon Lamas. He's a research director at IDC. Via Zoom is Johnny Evans, a columnist who covers Apple topics for Computer World, and our old pal Mike Simon, editor at Macworld. How's everybody doing today, guys?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Tired?
Yeah, it was a long keynote. A lot of videos that we were watching.
It was a day.
Yeah. So let's jump right into this whole Vision Pro thing. Obviously, that was the big announcement that it's probably the worst kept secret, I think, in terms of Apple. Like, everybody knew it was coming, and there was no surprises. Although I think watching all of those videos and waiting.
Yes and no.
Okay.
We expected it, but I'm going to say 80% of it, we had no idea what Apple was going to show us.
Okay.
The design, the functionality, what was inside of the tech. Like, we had vague kind of descriptions.
Right.
Like, we knew there was a digital crown. We knew that it was like a mesh covered thing. But for the most part, it was all new.
Right.
It was all, a surprise, so to speak.
Yeah, I think the first thing I noticed when they showed us the video of what it was like was, wow, these are ski goggles. But that's sort of what I expected. Ramon, were you surprised by the look and the feel of it?
Can we say Ready Player One?
Yeah.
And we knew that kind of going in, because when you look at Apple's design language and design philosophy, you're not going to have something huge, boxy, big, and ugly. That's the domain of many other vendors out there, and we can go through chapter and verse of vendors who've kind of violated that design law. But when it comes to what Apple does with iPhones, iPads, Macs, etc., you're expecting something to be just a little more personal, a little more human, a little more elegant. And let's face it, that's Apple's DNA.
Right.
And to do something otherwise would be a total violation, and that would be one of the reasons for people to say thanks but no thanks. And clearly that's not what Apple wants to do.
Right. Johnny, what were you in? What surprised you when you first initially saw the video of what was announced?
Well, I think given that we're all slaves to the rumor mill, at least to some extent, one of the biggest surprises for this was the price, which was higher than anybody actually expected, which came as a bit of a shock. But realistically, I think it's kind of unfair to get too focused on the price with this product, because what it is a route to future products, and it's a real flag in the sand we have here. And the feedback I've got from people who are there, various people who've been using the device, is that in terms of the user interface itself, they've really nailed it. So maybe that's a surprise, maybe it isn't, but ultimately the success of these things is going to come down to how easy it is to use. And the idea that you can actually put your Mac screen, wear it, and then use a keyboard and a mouse with it, that's kind of cool, isn't it? So they've clearly put a lot of thought into this flag in the sand. I keep falling down on the question of, who's it for?
Right.
And I think it's for people like us. It's for enterprise developers. It's for cutting edge gamers. It's for people who really want to explore the space. But when it becomes a mass market product, it's going to be down the line. I just think that's what we have here.
Yeah.
People ask the same question about the iPhone. Who's it for?
They did.
The iPod. Who's it for? Right?
Yeah.
Both of those.
Right now, I don't think it's for anyone. Apple is going to sell enough of them to make it worthwhile, so to speak. But it's much. So I'll use the iPod because that's the closest comparison I can think of. When that thing came out, it was ridiculed, completely ridiculed. Too expensive. What is the point? Who wants this thing? It's Mac only. Blah blah blah. Endless. And within 3 years, it was the biggest selling personal electronics device on the planet. Now, I think you're going to have to give the Vision Pro a little more time than 3 years.
Right.
But what Apple showed us yesterday, it's a bad pun, but it's the only thing I can say, is a vision for 5 to 10 years of computing. Notice they didn't use the word VR.
Yep.
They used the word spatial computing.
Right.
This is a completely new thing that we haven't really seen before, and we'll have our hands-on demo later on but by the time this posts, we'll have posted it.
Yeah.
But from what I hear so far, the experience of the thing is just next level.
And we were expecting that as well, in terms of it's very hard to show that in a video of
Right.
what makes it so special. And you and I have tried, Ramon, we've tried virtual headsets before and sort of these AR VR things. Do you feel like that's what's, and again, I think maybe that's why they're going to wait until next year, because they're going to get all of these things ready to be in the Apple stores, so that you're going to be able to walk in the Apple store and sort of experience this yourself before you make that decision on buying it, right?
Well, I think they've given enough, material and enough meat for us to chew on. Okay. And they do this in a couple different ways. You can see how quote unquote easy it is, to navigate around. I mean, when you put on some of the other, competitor headsets, you were given pretty much, or being lectured to, which is 10 times worse.
Okay.
Lectured about, how to use it. Okay. Trying to figure out the click, the double, the flower, the everything, and kind of pretty much tell, who I'm talking about here. But it's in Apple's DNA to make things so gosh darn easy, so that you can just say, forget the manual. I got this. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, this product, Vision Pro, and for all intents and purposes, Vision OS, is that, this is an amalgamation of a lot of the devices and software and experiences that you've had before. You need to know how to use the digital crown. If you have a watch, you got it.
Yeah.
You know how to pinch and zoom. If you had an iPad or an iPhone, you got it. Mm-hmm. So, I think what, Apple is kind of hitting upon over here is that, yes, it's fresh, and yes, it's spatial computing, and yes, you're going to be able to see and do all these new things. At the same time, and I think this is really key, it's familiar. Okay. You're not straying too far out of your comfort zone in order to use this.
Well, especially if you're in that Apple ecosystem to begin with, and you familiarize yourself with all of the other devices, then, like you said, you're going to know how to use that digital crown. And what surprised me was this sort of eye tracking that it's doing, so that when you look around on the inside, then that's sort of like your mouse movement. And then I believe is then to open an app is that what the whole clicky thing is? Is that where I don't even, what gesture is this now? Is it like finger tap?
So you're like grabbing things,
right?
Almost like you're grabbing an object and like scrolling and opening and things like that. The gestures, if you to call it that, it's way more than that. But the eye tracking and the hand gestures, which is the interface, not the interface, the input device, that Apple, I wasn't in the room when this thing was developed, but my guess is that was where they started. Much like the mouse and the Mac, the click wheel and the iPod, the multi-touch and the iPhone, that's what you have to get right.
Right.
Because the tech and all the coolness about it doesn't matter if people get frustrated within 5 minutes of using this thing. It has to be drop dead simple, and like you just said, that's Apple's DNA. It's everyone's going to focus on the price. Everyone's going to focus on the look of this thing. I think of the AirPods. Remember, people put in AirPods. Everyone said, "Wow, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen." Who's going to want that? Now they're everywhere.
Yeah,
I got a question for you. But do you think Joe and Jane Smith on Main Street USA, or any other user, and perhaps even the four of us as well, do you think that people are ready to make that kind of leap? To
No.
For the
Right
input.
now,
I mean, like,
no.
look. I mean, like, you can say, yeah, you can use the Magic Keyboard, but if you look at some of the videos, there's a gentleman wearing a pair of Vision Pro headset with a virtual keyboard in front of him,
right?
And they're saying, yeah, you can have Microsoft Word and Excel and all this other stuff. You really expect me to do that, virtually? That is a really huge leap that I'm not prepared to take. And yeah, you probably use the Magic Keyboard at the same time, but if I'm going to use the Magic Keyboard, maybe I want a screen anyways, and not have an infinite real estate to do that.
I think that goes back to the Johnny's question about who is this really for. It was surprising to see how much was focused on the enterprise or work sort of use cases before they got into the whole entertainment stuff.
If I could jump in there,
yeah, go ahead, Johnny.
I think that's important, because the enterprise and work is precisely where they have the budget, they have the ability, and they have the opportunity to come up with quite revolutionary ways of using interfaces like these. Think about emergency services, field service engineers, nursing, medical places where access to this kind of augmented mixed reality information would make a huge difference. So that's kind of important too. But also you've got to think. I think I'm not saying what you have to do, but I think it's important to look at accessibility and how accessibility is actually literally baked into this product from the start. They support dwell, they support voice, they support pointer control, they support voice control, and that is not just an outcome at the end of development. That's also the beginning. That's kind of, they looked towards accessibility as a sort of route for how they would make this usable, and the idea that they have glance to define what you're looking at. You look at something, it moves slightly, and then you select it with a gesture. That's kind of clever. But what I like about that, being a bit of a privacy snob, is that when you do that glance at those objects in your 100-foot monitor screen, you're not going to be tracked, taxed, or have your personal information shared with other people, unlike perhaps other systems that are on the market. And I think that's an important thing too, because what we're defining here is a completely new computing interface, isn't it? It might be a big bug eyes now, but we know that's not the plan in the longer term. So yeah, there's lots to like about it. Yeah, I think.
One of the things I also noticed in the video examples they were using in terms of the use cases was that they really didn't show you any sort of mobility or activity. I don't say like, Apple has always been big on fitness and health, and, I didn't see any sort of people jumping up and down with it or exercising with it, which it felt like it was very controlled of, you're going to be either standing by yourself at a desk, or you're going to be in your hotel room if you're traveling, or you're going to be sitting on an airplane, or you're sitting on your couch. I'm worried that like maybe this was that intentional. Like, we don't want to show you, or we're hoping that the developers will maybe do that. Ramon?
Right out of the gate.
Two prayers there.
Exactly. Yeah, I think right out of the gate, you got to be really careful in terms of setting your expectations as to what you can and cannot do.
Right.
And one of the things they spent probably a goodly amount of time, and I personally would have loved to hear more, was about their R1 chip and the real-time, sensor processor. I mean, when you think about, the number of calculations that this device has to do to, sense what's going on around you and put the right things at the right place, at the right size, and at the right time, and synchronize it with, the audio, and let's not forget what you're doing. It's a lot easier to do that if you're sitting still, if you're standing still, if you're not doing anything.
Okay.
If you're going to have a Fitness Plus session. And a lot of the, speculation was like, oh yeah, of course you can do Fitness Plus on this. You can do, Beat Saber on Oculus Quest 2. You should be able to do, a Fitness Plus session on this. That is a recipe for disaster.
Well, yeah, because that'll be the first thing. Like when they were talking about how the design specs of this, and they started talking about the expensive curved glass and all this other, the second someone jumps up and down and then it drops on the floor and you've now broken this device, like that's going to be a disaster too, right? So maybe that's why they didn't show you that kind of things.
And the first word going through your head at that point is $34.99, right?
Yeah. I also didn't notice they didn't show anybody outside. So I'm wondering about sort of the types of outside lighting that you're going to need for this. It sounds like all of the rooms that they were showing these examples in were dimly lit, and lighting is a big issue with a lot of these headsets. So any thoughts on that? Do you think that they've purposely didn't want to show you outside because the lighting is going to be bad?
Well, I think that's endemic to the market at large, isn't it?
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
I think it's quite clear that this is not meant to be worn outside. Like, the early rumors of this thing were that it was a pair of glasses. You strap them on, you walk around, and then the whole world lights up. The killer use case, as every Apple product needs, I think, is the work from home segment. Mm-hmm. Think about, since the pandemic, how much has changed. How many more people have home setups? What about the next pandemic? What about the next shift in workspace? Because you could say enterprise. I'm not in enterprise, but I wouldn't be opposed to putting on a headset, having a multi-monitor setup, having a keyboard, and having that wherever I want to be. So I think that's right now the use case. I am sure that fitness is something that they're already working on. Remember, we're 10 to 12 months away.
Right.
From this thing being available. So that all could come.
Right.
The Apple Watch, the first Apple Watch, it was not what it is today. Fitness was a relatively small part of the original concept.
Mm-hmm.
And then they realized, well, this is how people want to use it. The whole Vision Pro, they need to get it out into the world with enough people, not so much selling it, but people to be curious enough to want it. So when the cheaper model comes out in 2025 and it's $2,000,
right,
then they're going to sell them in relatively large numbers. Still not iPhone numbers or even Apple Watch numbers, but big enough where it becomes. I think within 3 years, this will probably be $1 billion category for Apple.
Wow.
Very least, yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting things I saw was when they were showing the FaceTime video. And I think this was a question that Mike, the last time I talked with you and Ken Mingus about sort of the possibility was that what would if you're on a FaceTime call when wearing these goggles, what do the other people see? And they answered that question is they put this 3D scanning camera and now they've created this hologram and you can see it on the screen here. The personas and it'll match your sort of voice and your eyes. And first thing that went through my head was, wow, that's creepy. But then I was like, well, that's understandable because you're not going to show a picture of someone with the goggles on. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the people who throw in the word creepy around, I mean, sure, everything new like this is automatically creepy because your mind goes to like, well, I'm not used to this. And I'll tell you what's creepy is that those weird avatars that Facebook has in the metaverse, those are creepy.
Okay, that's true.
This is like for a first gen, absolutely bleeding edge product.
Yeah.
The people who have used this thing and scanned themselves say that like it's pretty incredible now.
Wow. Okay.
So what the thing does, like it scans your face and it puts you out there, and then it as you're talking, it conveys those like movements, almost like you're making a movie in real time.
Yeah.
And so it's able to convey your facial expressions and your movements to that image, which is then projected to the person on the other end of the line.
I mean, look.
And in that way, that's a human connection within the communication.
Yeah. Bingo.
Right. I think that's really important. Yeah.
Bingo.
Like, I mean, they could have done it with Animoji. Of course, they could have said, "Hey, look, you're a tiger. Isn't that cool?" Yeah. But instead, they
or a talking piece of feces.
This entire interface.
Or it's like those early days.
Honestly,
of Zoom.
it makes the what is it called, the MetaQuest? It makes it look like a toy.
Yeah.
All of its competitors, like there's nothing in this class, nothing.
Yeah, Ramon, do you have a thought on the FaceTime stuff?
I mean, look, it falls right into what Apple really meant for this device and its experience to do. They want this thing to be like as human as possible. You can't do that with a cartoon. You can't do it with a comic. Yeah. You can't do it with, borrow any other example. You can't do it with, an avatar where, we don't have any legs, but we just float around. Okay. And I'm really curious to see, just exactly, how realistic it is. Okay. Yeah. And how, responsive it is too. And it kind of goes back to that, that R1 processor I was talking about earlier, is that you don't want to have the kind of lag and exactly, how is this? And I'm really curious, how is it going to be able to detect, just by my intonation alone, I'm assuming, it's going to know what kind of facial expression or gesture that I'm trying to do.
Right. Because it's only looking at your eyes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I've been accused many a time of being, probably a little bit too sarcastic for my own good sometimes. How does that convey?
Yeah.
Because, if we're going to have that human interaction, shouldn't we be able to, capture those emotions, spot on. And I think, this is probably not going to be the be all end all. This is a start. And that goes for personas, that goes for eyesight, that goes for environments, that goes for this entire package that we saw yesterday. I mean, yesterday was many, many things. Right. But I think, this is just going to be, step one, because, to Mike's point, this is, what we're going to see from Vision Pro in probably in several years is going to look nothing what we have today. And, when we take a look at, the release date, which is going to be early 2024. Look at Apple's all their other, hit products. You know what? You run out and go out and get that. Hey, congratulations. You wait a year and a half later. Okay, 18 months, man. $34.99 later.
Yeah.
Here's version 2 with more bells and whistles. I mean, look, iPhone went from, something that ran on AT&T's Edge network to all the way to 3G. You take a look at the watch. It went from a timepiece to having GPS and waterproofing.
Yeah.
Who knows what the next Vision Pro is gonna have? I would really like to see a lower price tag.
So we're all excited about Vision Pro version 3, right? Like that's what we're really hyped up
I think
for.
it's worth. I mean, just to sort of jump in, I think we just got to go right back to something else that keeps cropping up here, which is it's not going to ship till next year. And what's the betting the next year is early? I think it's quite slow. It'll be early next year, so it'll be probably towards spring next year, maybe a bit after spring. So now suddenly we're looking at almost a year of additional development time, and that's not just development time in terms of physical or production facility. That's also development time in terms of the operating system and what it's capable of, and how all the other devices in the Apple ecosystem that integrate so well with it work with it too. So there's plenty of scope and opportunity to so that when the package does appear, what we actually meet is something far more sophisticated than we already know. But what they've done is define it. They put a desiderata, a flag in the sand. They said, we want it to be this good. They've already pretty much, in terms of everything I'm hearing from the VIAR enthusiasts, nailed a user experience which is better than anything else.
Right.
So now they're going to tweak it, improve it, listen to criticism from people like me. There's some poor soul at Apple PR is probably going to have to listen to what we say today to try and figure out how they can translate any criticisms we may have into real action. And that's what they do. And of course they do that. And so I think it's true to say that what we're sort of like, we're talking about something which is already a myth, because the reality that we're going to encounter is going to be something rather more substantial. And that's kind of exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's exciting.
Yeah. I want to get back to the hardware specs for a second. One of the things that jumped out at me when I was watching that video was, oh, wow, they've got like a LiDAR scanner and the number of cameras that they've got on it. And this concept of being able to use the headset to take 3D images and video. It's almost spatial video. Like that was like, oh, that's really cool, and something I had never seen before. Now, maybe, I don't know, Ramon, did that exist before? The ability to sort of take these 3D cameras and create like a 3D. I think they used like a kid's birthday party or something like that. And but then I started thinking about, well, I could take this into a room and then basically map out the room that I'm in, and that creates like applications for real estate and sort of those types of virtual tours of different locations and things like that.
I think it's new to the sense that, what we're looking at of saying, here, not only could you use the LiDAR sensors and the cameras and everything else, as we've seen it in the past, because this is not the first time we've had a LiDAR, camera built into a phone or anything like that. But, now you can do, now that you can experience space, with a camera, once you have it in the display of the Vision Pro, now you can start playing around with that.
And you could start using, maybe you put a LiDAR scanner and something like that into the new iPhone and then tell everybody, all right, well, now you can use this handheld device to start mapping rooms and mapping locations and taking these videos, but then you watch it on your Vision Pro later. Again, that's that meshing of the Apple ecosystem. I was impressed by that.
That's already there.
Yeah.
The iPhone and iPad already have LiDAR, so that's technically capable. It's just not a feature.
Right. But I could see them then now promoting it. Now they've got the device to view it on.
Sure, that could be a feature of the next. Apple doesn't generally add features like that to old phones, but the iPhone 15 could have a camera feature that works with the headset. You take a photo here. I'm sorry, you take a video here, looks 2D on your phone, and then you play it on your headset and it looks 3D.
Right.
You could also, I think, the Vision Pro, there's a hint in the name, isn't there? What if this is actually a sort of stalking horse towards becoming a video creation and content delivery system, if you tie it up with a top-end Mac and maybe some kind of future iteration of Final Cut Pro? What if it is designed so that it's able to capture that kind of spatial information on a wider scale? Are we going to suddenly find suspicious-looking people with Apple logos on their T-shirt walking around the sports games over the next season? I don't think that's unlikely, frankly. But but something like that. This is the Pro. What will the Joe version be? The Vision Joe for the average Joe, which doesn't have the same price tag.
Johnny, I think you've got a job in Apple marketing if you just call it the Vision Joe.
Oh, no, I don't think so. But I was so impressed with a couple of the names they threw out yesterday.
Yeah, you might want to patent that name right away.
Let's talk a little bit about the entertainment aspects of it. Was there anything impressive on that front in terms of the ability to sort of enlarge the screen, shrink the screen, create these environments around you so that it's almost virtual? Now, again, they didn't say virtual reality and they didn't use the term VR at all. I think that was intentional, but like from my perspective, I was like, oh, I've seen that before on some headsets, the ability to watch a movie and things like that. But was there anything else that jumped out at you, Ramon, from that angle?
Well, I like the well, first of all, I like watching stuff on my own on my Quest 2 right now because look, I come from a family of 5, and heaven help us, it's a very rare day that all 5 of us would want to watch the same thing at the same time. So having this all to myself would be great. And how many times have you heard the story like, boy, you know what? If I could only have a headset that I could bring with me on the road and I could watch my favorite movie like this. Okay. I think it's, pretty impressive. I like the environment piece too, that you can slowly and surely, phase everything out. And I think, that's going to eventually become one of those things like, oh yeah, of course we have that. It's an Apple product.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Same thing with EyeSight. Of course it has EyeSight. Apple's already thought of that. And I think the EyeSight piece is a really interesting one because, it kind of takes out some of the, we talked about these things being kind of creepy. Okay. When they showed some of the video where somebody's eyes were actually coming through the device, to me, that was kind of creepy, but when you understood, what that was for and how
like the transparent screen part,
screen part, I'm like, what, that really makes just a lot of sense because, trying to have a conversation with somebody while you're in the middle of something, you don't want to be taken out of your game, your movie or anything like that.
Right.
It's that, and again, Apple does a lot of things well, and this is one of them. But when they kind of bring that convenience factor, so you don't have to go in and out. You're just there. You just pause, and then it comes back out. But I think that's one of the things that's gonna, it doesn't take away from the entertainment aspect, as other headsets would.
Mike, Johnny, any thoughts on the entertainment part of it or the gaming part, even?
I still think.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Go for it, Mike.
Sorry. So the thing that jumped out as the most exciting part of that was that Disney presentation where they went through a bunch of their properties. I mean, Disney, what is the entertainment king of the world? They have everything, but like being able to see it in this way, they showed The Mandalorian and like different things popped out of the screen. Like you can go to this planet, you can go to this planet, explore this. That Marvel stuff that was kind of vague, but it looked interesting. The sports stuff was amazing. Like courtside views of games. I mean, all right, so here's a question. Like courtside seats cost $500
right
at the minimum. If I could pay $10 or $20 to watch a game instead of on my TV set, but strap on my headset and sit as if I'm sitting courtside, I'd pay that. I mean, there's so many opportunities for entertainment. I mean, the movie thing is cool. If I can have a 100-foot movie screen, just by putting this thing on. I mean, if I'm watching by myself, sure. I mean, I'll do that. But the sports thing was what really got me interested, and as well as that, like, kind of like bringing it to like a different level of watching something rather than just watching like an image or a 3D movie or something. But like Disney implied that, like Disney section implied that you'll be able to like explore different parts of a show by going off into different, different realms.
Right, Johnny, you had some thoughts on that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had some fairly sort of tedious joke about it. Anytime I don't want to speak to the rest of my family, I'll just shove my 100-foot screen on. But equally, the opportunity to sort of revolutionize the way that people create content. Now we've got a content delivery mechanism that enables, as Michael alluded to, with Disney, enables really quite powerful and substantial new ways to deliver broadcast, if you like, content or any kind of content. And the idea of you're suddenly moving into sort of three-dimensional space in quite a serious way. I kind of dispensed with most of the earlier products which have tried to do this. I think we've kind of got a company which has got the commitment to develop the technology to make it happen, along with the processes to drive it without burning your hands or your head. So I think there's a real opportunity for this, and I think there you have to look quite closely at what developers are being shown at WDC this year and next year in terms of the vision framework and how that's going to improve in future years, because that's going to be critical to how this evolves.
Right.
And I think that's kind of interesting as a space too. Yeah.
Yep. Ramon.
Yeah, I want to go back to something that Mike brought up that it just popped into my head. It was the Disney piece, because Disney was coming up with all these things. You can see Marvel characters coming out, Star Wars characters coming out, and stuff like that. Anybody catch the Mickey Mouse video?
Yes. Yeah.
And that was the part where actually my jaw dropped.
Okay.
And here's why. Is because
it jumped off of there was a painting on the wall, and then he jumped off of that and then jumped onto a physical couch. Yeah.
And then he jumped from there to what? A physical floor.
Yeah, here, I think we've got it. It's in this video here. I liked the turtle part, the National Geographic part of this. But then here comes the Mickey Mouse part. So it jumps off and then lands on the floor correctly, and then jumps onto the couch. So
and I can't help but remember back to like 2014 when the first Microsoft HoloLens came out, and they were trying to do all these demos and stuff like that. One of the demos that never saw the light of day, and I really wish it did, and I know my kids would love to see the light of day. That I think with this Disney with Mickey Mouse demonstration kind of nailed is that now you have content that is spatially aware, spatially computed, obviously, and now you can interact with it. And Microsoft was trying to say, you could play Minecraft, and they would show a table and you put on the HoloLens, and if I could have done that with my kids, way back then, right? Now the HoloLens is my own babysitter. And didn't go that way, but now we have something that kids can be like, okay, it's not always just me sitting down or lying down and consuming content. It's interacting with that content to towards some end, and maybe it's a gaming piece. But the fact that it's that sophisticated,
right? And I think that's another thing for developers to start thinking about is like, all right, well, we've got this Avengers property, for example. If I'm Disney and Marvel, why not have in my house now? I can now fight the bad guys. I can be Iron Man and put my hand out and boom. And now I'm actually playing a game sort of in my own room, and the villains are jumping around on the couch and all these different locations. I mean, that's pretty cool, but that's probably the Vision Joe or the Vision, like that's probably coming down the line. The ones that aren't going to break when the kids, because again, I don't know how many of these people are going to give it to their kids at this point.
That's true.
I did have a question.
Again, that's not this one.
Yes.
But I'll tell you that generation is absolutely what this is for. My son is 11.
Yep.
And, he asked me, like, because he knew I was busy all day, like, what were you doing? And I showed him, and he immediately was all in.
Yeah.
All in. So that generation is digital, connected, and ready for all of this technology, much like we were with like Nintendo and Atari, and our parents were like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like that generation, like this is for that generation. It's, plenty of people our age are going to use it, but first of all, he's an Apple person without even realizing, because he has an iPad and he has an iPhone and he has an AirPods. And he has, because I'm using them, he uses them. His generation all use iMessage. And now in 10 years, when he is 20, which is crazy to say, but he will be at some point. He's going to this will be the thing he probably has in college.
Right. Well, that's
digital natives. Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to jump back to the Disney stuff just real quickly. I started thinking about a lot of the entertainment and the sort of the movie watching and things like that. It feels like it's going to be in a closed ecosystem initially, or do you think that I'm going to be able to access any video that I have or any video service? Like, will I be able to watch Netflix on this, or do I have to wait for Netflix to sort of sign a deal with Apple? Does anybody know anything about that?
I think Netflix will have to make XROS app for it. That's the only way I can think of it working, is that unless you go through like a website or something.
I'm knocking through the developer information that's coming out, and I haven't found anything which would give me a solid answer to that. Yes, but that's one way it could go, Mike. Yeah.
Right, because obviously it's an Apple presentation. They're going to show you everything that you can watch on Apple.
Right now it's all Ted Apple stuff, except for that Disney piece, which we don't even really know we don't even know what of that is real and what isn't.
Yeah, Apple will definitely like tout any partnership that it has in terms of content.
You know, I think that Apple also made a point saying that, listen, you know, you will have at your fingertips hundreds upon thousands of apps that you have on your iPhone and your iPad. They're going to be here too.
Okay. But not the enhanced version, or like just a regular. So I'll just be able to play 2D Candy Crush on this.
Come back in 10 months and let's find out.
I'd be very surprised if that was part of it. Like, I know when the iPad came out, they let you blow up iPhone apps, and it was a terrible experience.
Right.
I'd be really surprised if that was something that they wanted to do here. I think it's going to be only apps specifically developed for this environment, because again, they want to this world that they're making, like they want it to be as next generation as it can possibly get. So throwing a 2D iPhone screen and having you tap away at it, like that's not the concept.
Okay.
I seem to recall that at some point during my late night last night, I came across a video somewhere which indicated that one way to get an app to the Vision to these devices is a little click box you have to take in Xcode, which kind of like automatically helps create a user interface which kind of matches what they do. But it's still an intentional decision, right? Not just, anything at the wall. Yeah.
Right.
So there was another question I had for you guys. Was I noticed that all four of us are wearing glasses. So this is one of those issues that I think I've had with VR goggles, is that you either have to design something where you can wear the glasses inside, or there's some sort of like not autofocus, but did you get a sense that, now I think I read in your story, Johnny, was that they will have accessories for sort of prescription lens types of a thing, which I guess would solve my problem, because I've got like my left eye is weaker than my right eye. So it's almost like I couldn't just it wouldn't be able to autofocus me like automatically. It would almost be like let's talk about that. And then also about the comfort of wearing this thing. Like, how long are you going to be able to wear this on your head? Johnny.
The lenses are an optional extra.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to go. So I'll go to my eye doctor and say, I need a prescription for this.
They're not just an optional extra. They're required. So the eye tracking doesn't work with eyeglasses.
Okay.
So when you buy a Vision Pro,
you're going to have to then get the specific
your prescription, and they will send you magnetic lenses pop onto the inside of the Reality Pro, and that's how you're going to use it. So I don't know what they're going to cost. We're probably $500 each.
Yeah.
Maybe more. But that is absolutely something that people are going to have to consider when buying this thing, and it also, so if you have a household, right?
Yeah.
You have to worry about the people in your house subscription, and my wife has a different one. You got to buy extra lenses and stuff if you want to share it.
Right.
So that's, I think it's cool that they thought about that, but that's a whole extra expense. Apparently, when you go to the demo area, Apple is taking your glasses and, getting you the proper ones to fit in so you can use it for that. You can properly use it.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
I assume contact lenses won't be a problem. I don't know. I haven't read that or heard that.
Okay.
But I have to assume if you have contacts, they would work just fine. I guess, because it's eye tracking.
What about the comfort part of that, Ramon? Like, how long can you go when you're wearing one of these headsets before you start to get fatigued?
Probably a couple hours.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it is going to be content based. I mean, if I really want to see a movie, I'll watch the movie. Okay. If I really want to play a game that long, I'll play the game that long. But, I didn't see, and it's hard to tell, the comfort level of a strap around somebody's head. But,
right.
Nobody looked like, made it seem as if, this was squeezing the, ever living daylights out of their heads. Okay.
Right. But you still need a firm seal around sort of the eyes, right?
Yeah. And that's where it could get, hot, steamy. And I think that could be, one of the things that I'd have questions about, at the demo and say, what's your recommendation and how hot and how humid can it get? Because, at the end of this, you're going to come out looking like a raccoon. Right. And you might even feel like one too. So, in terms of comfort, you got your strap in the back and it's made of, 3D knitting. And I get that it's breathable. But, for me, the comfort really is going to lie between, at my eyeballs. Okay. And one of the things that they didn't talk about, but they did allude to, is that, the Vision Pro is automatically going to adjust to your IPD. your interpupillary distance,
Okay.
which is the space.
I'm glad you actually defined that acronym. I've never heard that before.
So it's the space between your two pupils.
Okay.
Because if you looked at one of the videos, you can see that the two primary lenses sliding back and forth ever so slightly. So it's a perfect fit. So to Mike's question, what if you have a family of however many? Do you need X number of devices, or at least for lenses? But the answer, as far as I could tell, is that you probably still just need one. And depending on who that user is, it's going to make the allowances to say, okay,
Right.
We know that your IPD is like 3.8 and whatever, like I think it was like a 38 or something like that, and then it'll slide directly into whatever it has to be in order for you to have the best optimized experience.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on sort of? I think that the comfort part will then be alleviated by the fact that this only has a 2-hour battery life. So you'll be able, the battery will die before probably you get uncomfortable wearing it on the head. But they also did say that it was all day work when plugged in. So I'm assuming there's an electrical power cable that will go into the battery pack, and then the battery pack will then charge.
USB-C.
Yeah. So that's again why the mobility thing wasn't. You didn't see anybody running around with this because again, it's only going to. If you're on a plane, like that movie won't end before your battery's drained, right?
Well, there are plugs on planes. You can plug
like
it
electric. Oh, okay. Well, I'm not. I haven't flown in.
I got to tell you, I'm not bringing a $3,500 pair of goggles to the plane. Despite what Apple wants me to do, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Here's the one thing about the cable. Okay, it's not so much the cable itself.
The supple woven cable.
Is that what they're calling it?
That was their euphemism for heavy.
Here's the one thing, and I credit my colleague Jitesh Ubrani who pointed this out to me, is that if you take a look at the placement of the jack on the headset itself, it's right around or above your ear or somewhere around there. The thing is, like the way that it's pointed. Okay, when you try to plug it in, it's straight back, which kind of makes for a really weird experience having this wire kind of draping over you. Okay, a much more comfortable way to do it so that it actually wouldn't. It's actually less of a chance of falling out if it's pointed ever so slightly downward. Okay, because having it out back, it's again weird wire placement, weird comfort issues as a result. And I think it's one thing that I can't believe I'm actually saying this. Perhaps it's something that Apple overlooked when it comes to saying, okay, where do we put this?
Yeah, Johnny, go ahead.
I'm curious now because one thing I didn't pick up is what is the connection from the power cable to the device? I'm looking at a picture of it now, and I can see it looks a bit like a MagSafe one. In which case, at least you don't have to you'd be able to use magnetism. But is it? I actually don't know. It's a question I'd like to find out. And another feature request would be an over your head strap for those days when you do want to move around and you don't want your $3,500 landing on the floor. I think that they could actually start doing fitness videos if they do an over the head strap as well as the side ones. Maybe
I wouldn't be surprised if when they announced this thing for shipping, there wasn't a fitness accessory that you can buy that does just that, as well as a larger battery pack or an extra battery pack.
Right.
Like all that stuff will be taken care of. There's going to be another event before this ships, just like they did with Apple Watch.
Yep.
Like we'll have one next March or something where they'll reveal 8 more things that it does or has that we didn't get today or yesterday.
All right. I do want to ask you about some of the other things that were announced at WWDC so we, obviously we can do more videos about Vision Pro as we get closer to the actual device shipping. But what else? I'll start with Michael on this one. What other things? Because I think when we were talking a few months ago, I think you had predicted this 15-inch MacBook Air. Is that correct? Like you would.
Yeah, that wasn't that much of a prediction. It was
fairly obvious. I'm trying to give you some credit here, Michael.
Honestly, all the other announcements were expected. The M2 Ultra chip, the Mac Pro, the 15-inch Air, and obviously all the OS updates. So I'll do the Air. I mean, it's fine. The best part of it is the price. I thought it would be $14.99. It came in at $12.99, and they cut the price of the 13 to $10.99, which is great. All of that is good. there's nothing wrong with the 15-inch Air. It's perfectly fine. It's a 15-inch version of the 13.6 model.
Right. Okay.
If you want a little more screen, I personally think that 15 inches is like the sweet spot. I have a 14-inch Pro. It's a little bit too small sometimes. 16-inch Pro is a little bit too big for me for carrying it around and stuff. So 15 is a nice size.
Yeah.
I think they're going to sell a ton of them at that price. I expected it to be $200 higher than it was.
Okay, Johnny, anything else from the other announcements from the hardware side?
I can only completely agree with everything that Mike said about the MacBook Air. It's going to be an incredibly successful machine. It's got loads of real estate on it. It's powerful. It's great. I want one already. But I mean, I could get really geeky and start moaning about device management for Apple Watch and managed device attestation for Macs and all the other really quite exciting things which are just beginning to announce right now, which kind of goes straight into the enterprise IT audience who use these things. And they're an important audience for this too, because especially when it comes to Macs, they've been lapping them up. And Apple wants them to keep on lapping them up. And the more they sort of work towards making it easy to integrate Macs within a sort of mixed computing world, the better things seem to be going for them, especially in the States. And so, there's that going on too. And then of course you've got your Mac Pro and your Studio, and people are sort of saying, well, why are they doing the Studio if they're doing the Pro? Well, man, you want the Pro, six PCIe slots, astonishing power. That's the most hardcore system you can get now. And I'd love to know if there's a PC that really competes with it. I guess we'll know that when the group test starts shipping at some point later on.
Yeah, that's a device I will never ever have on my desktop because I can't afford a $7,000 Mac.
But yeah, I agree. But if you're talking about performance, the Mac Studio, the M2 Ultra Mac Studio, same chip, same RAM, same storage.
Yeah.
The difference is the PCI slots. It's the Mac Pro was always a niche machine, but it is now basically for the 700 people left who have a spot filled by an Intel Mac Pro right now, and just need to replace it with something because, for all intents and purposes, you can save $3,000 and get the Mac Studio and get the exact same performance.
Yeah, you drop the word Intel and Ramon, like you noticed this too, that they kept dropping Intel in terms of the comparison, like 7 times faster than Intel or 5 times faster than this.
Yeah, well, that's what it's coming from. I mean, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, well, no,
that's the biggest competitor, or the only competitor really. AMD's getting there. But Intel's.
I think for Apple's sake, they have to benchmark against something. Okay. And, sure, you can benchmark against M1 and you're not going to be flat for that. But if you really want to make a splash, okay, because chances are if you're going to compare against an M1, you're probably going to get, 30, 40% bigger. When you come out and say against Intel, something comparable, 4 times faster. Now they got something to really hang their hat on. Yeah. And then after that, it's just, a matter of saying, boy, I can just have that much better of an experience on account of this compared to, some of the stuff that I've been playing for years.
Yeah, I was impressed by how much they were focusing on. And again, I haven't followed a lot of the Apple stuff before, like the last few years with this move towards their own chips and the whole Apple Silicon ecosystem. It felt like yesterday it was like, we're all in on our own chips now. We've got this R1 chip for, and was it M2 Ultra or M2 Max in the headset?
Ultra.
So they've got
it's just an M2 in the headset.
M2 in the headset, yeah. But basically they're saying like we're all in on our own silicon now, and it felt like yesterday it was like, well, we don't need these other chipsets anymore.
And I think that was the vision Apple had way back when.
Yeah,
way back when. And now it's realized to the point that we can all just basically sit around this table, in person, virtually or not, and say, well, of course they're going to have their own silicon. What else are they going to use?
Right.
And you can imagine all the benefits they have. I mean, they can, chart their own course as to how fast, how much, what price, what size. I mean, it's all on them.
Is there going to be some sort of then benchmarking speed war between them and other chip makers at some point? Or is that more of a really geeky thing that we'll let the PC world
people right now they're
there is.
They're so far ahead right now with their silicon on all fronts. Qualcomm Snapdragon is like 2 generations behind the iPhone 8 16 chip. Intel, I mean, if you compare Intel's workstation chips, the M2 Ultra either matches or beats that. Graphics, unified graphics, forget it. but you can even compare against like higher end discrete graphics, and Apple Silicon is in the ballpark. What Apple is doing with the Silicon is tremendous, and the Vision Pro is the best example of what that leads to.
Right.
When you control everything, you can do, just incredible stuff. Like I get like almost like wispy, because like if Steve Jobs was still alive right now, imagine what his vision could bring. Credit to Tim Cook. The Vision Pro is a remarkable device. It's amazing, cutting edge, incredible, completely new, completely this whole next gen platform.
Right.
But he's not Steve Jobs. Nobody is.
Right.
And I just wonder if he was alive with Apple Silicon, like what he would be able to do. Because look what he did with other people's silicon, right?
Right.
Yeah. And what's amazing is it scales. We've got the Apple, we've got a Apple Silicon in a Mac Pro. We've got Apple Silicon in a watch. We've got Apple Silicon in a phone. You got it on your headset and in your TV. And this processor, these processors that they create, which deliver so much computational performance at low energy, enabling to continue to maintain an environmental focus, which they have to have. Our world needs them to have. Our world needs everyone else to have it too. This is so important and so fundamental, because it enables them, like Mike's saying, to come up with almost any creation which would benefit from putting a processor inside. They now have the ability to do that. They're limited, at least in terms of processors, only by their imagination at this stage. And I guess the Vision Pro will enable them to do an awful lot of fast prototyping of various different things they could try and make while they're having their tea, which is nice. I think that'd be lovely. But yeah, I think Apple Silicon remains the star of the show, even if it didn't get so much airtime yesterday.
Right.
It's enabling so much.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to jump into some of the software stuff that they were talking about. Now, there's so much that, like, a lot of these things seem like little things, but I wanted to just get your thoughts on something. For example, like in their messaging app, they made they sort of dropped a joke about that it'll finally learn that you're not saying the word ducking, and I think we all know what word we're going to be saying. That was kind of an inside little joke. But then also dropping the word "hey" from "Hey Siri." It also did feel like that they're not dropping Siri at all. We heard news a couple days ago that Microsoft is finally getting rid of Cortana, in favor of this AI stuff. It did seem subtle that they kept dropping Siri in, and that they also then kept using the term machine learning instead of AI or artificial intelligence. Did you guys pick up on that as well, or am I just maybe like overhyped on AI that I'm
they didn't.
away from this ecosystem?
They didn't mention AI once.
Right.
In over 2 hours. Yet they talked around AI a lot.
And if you
Siri's not going anywhere. I know that it's the butt of a lot of jokes.
Yeah.
But it's ingrained into their products. It's an important part of every single thing that we use. And now the headset is also going to be voice activated too. So Siri's not going anywhere. The autocorrect stuff is encouraging because that's another place where Apple kind of led the way and then fell off, much like Siri. So they took the time. I haven't used it yet, but based on what they were saying, like it's going to be like loads better. And it was okay before. If that's like 100% reliable now, that leads me to believe that the next thing they're going to revamp is Siri's understanding, because language is at the forefront of that. Siri's understanding, Siri's ability to quickly get information and deliver it, those types of things. Maybe next year at WWDC, because again, that's going to be forefront to the headset. Like you're going to need to. They kept saying voice, hands, eyes, and voice.
Right.
So that's going to be part of it.
But they didn't show they didn't show a lot of examples of people using the voice to control anything or to.
They
didn't,
to do and perhaps that's part of the development still to come. Remember they got 10 months in tech, 10 to 12 months in tech time that's an eternity.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that they still have to do with this headset. but AI may become part of Siri, but Siri's not going to go away like Cortana. I mean, Cortana never really caught on. Lots of people use Siri.
Intent.
Johnny, what?
They're moving towards getting better. They're moving towards getting better at detecting intent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you just think about the AirPods and what the AirPods do, when you're talking to somebody and it will say, "Oh yeah, you're talking to somebody now. I'm going to change the way I do the sound so you can hear them and they can hear you. You have a natural speaking experience." Or when you're walking down a noisy environment and the AirPods are, "Oh, that sounds a bit noisy. I'm going to put some noise control in there so you get a clear music experience." Well, they may sound sort of relatively small things, but they're quite big things because that is machine intelligence figuring out how to help you with your life, and that's fundamental to, I think, Apple's approach with Siri and with mostly machine vision intelligence in their products to enable you to do more with your life. And I think we'll be looking at Siri getting better at understanding and predicting what you want based on what it knows around you. So you won't be saying "hey" anymore. It will already give you the answer. And I think that's kind of where they're going. And that's very different from the sort of generative AI model that sucks up all the column inches now.
Right.
But realistically, it's just a smart chatbot. And but Siri is becoming a machine which enables the human, while the dangers of the government talking about ChatGPT and untrammeled use of AI and how it threatens society is that doesn't really enable the human, that suppresses it. And I think those are two very different models of how to apply machine intelligence in a digital age.
Ramon, do you have some thoughts there too?
Apple succeeds with theirs.
Yeah,
you know, I'm inching ever so closer to AI hangover right now.
Okay,
you're hearing about it, a lot of the times, and it's the buzzword of 2023.
Yeah,
and how many, where are the places that we could put them in and generate a poem, a song, or whatever. Write me my term paper, etc. And I don't think Apple even used the words AI.
No, they did not.
In as much as they use the words virtual reality. Okay?
Right.
But instead,
or metaverse. They didn't use metaverse.
Or metaverse, exactly. But instead, what did they do? They said, listen, hey, we're making, this is probably not, what they said verbatim, but we're making this entire experience that much more human. Mm-hmm. Okay. Make that experience much more convenient. So you don't have to think about it. You just do it. You just use it. You just say it. Okay. And let all the machine learning and let all the algorithms take place in the background. Because Joe and Jane Smith on Main Street USA don't care. Okay. And they probably don't even want to hear the words, but they want to know that Siri is going to be able to deliver the information that they need, execute the tasks that they need done, and then move on with their lives.
Okay.
Good job, Apple.
Were there any other, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, I'm quite sure Apple has a whole team working on generative AI stuff.
Right.
They're not the kind of company that's going to throw in an app into iOS 17 that may or may not be accurate, may or may not be, filled, whatever's wrong with ChatGPT and those types of chatbots. Apple isn't in the business of shipping products that may or may not be what they want them to be.
Right. So
we'll get that at some point. Whether it's a separate thing, whether it's built into Siri, whether it's part of some other device, who knows? But maybe it'll just be an underlying thing in all of its products that we never actually are able to tap into directly. But I'm quite certain that they're working on. It's the biggest company in the world, the biggest biggest company. Get tech.
Yeah.
Biggest company in the world. Do you think that they're missing out?
No, I think they're just waiting. I think they're waiting to perfect it like they do with everything else.
And yesterday was not the time to do it.
Yeah,
and
that's a good point.
That's it. It's also, and waiting to see if it's a viable thing or just the flavor of the month and it goes away.
Right.
It is interesting that there was no work on SiriKit at WWDC. There's nothing much being said to developers, which I think actually says a zillion things to developers.
Yeah.
They're up to something.
All right, I'm going to close out. I'm going to ask each of you, sort of from the other list of all the other things that were announced, was what else either impressed you or are you looking forward to? Ramon, I'll start with you.
Focus on health.
Okay.
It's a pleasant and kind of refreshing thing that it's not always about displays. It's not always about the sound. It's how technology is affecting us and the steps that Apple is trying to take to safeguard my health, your health, and everybody else's health, so that we don't degenerate that much faster.
I am going to add one thing on this, and so there was this focus on obviously the mental health and the mindfulness, and that's fine. That's cool. But then they started talking about vision health with, sort of the myopia and the discussion of myopia. And you're talking about trying to get kids to go outside and get some fresh air. At the same time, then they just drop this Vision Pro headset on you, which you're going to be sitting in a dark room
only for 2 hours.
Only for 2 hours. But it did feel like, hey, we really care about your vision health. But hey, here's this new Vision Pro thing. That again, maybe it's just me being cynical. I just thought it was like, oh well, But of course, they're concerned about the kids and not necessarily the old guys who've like. We're all wearing glasses.
We're far gone.
Right. Okay. So the focus on health. Michael, what else from the updates was impressive to you, or did you like? Oh wow, that's cool. Michael,
there was a feature, iOS 17 feature called Live Voicemail, and what that does is when someone calls you on your screen, you'll see. So, like everyone else, I only pick up like maybe 3 people, and everyone else I just kind of let to go to voicemail, and then I'll wait 2 minutes and then I'll check it. What this does is, as someone leaves a voicemail, you'll get a readout on your screen of what they're saying, and you can read it, and if it's important, you can pick up. Like the answering machine.
I know the old school answering machine.
For now.
when we were sitting at home screening our calls. Yeah. I do like that one as well. Yeah.
It's just a nifty little feature that it's probably 5 years overdue, but it's pretty cool. We one of the people on our team have a dev beta, so we tested it, and it was pretty spot on. The transcription was excellent.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things that, like, I'll get a call and it's like from my plumber or an electrician, and I don't have that number memorized, and it's not in the sort of the caller ID. So that would be nice to be able to pick up and go, oh yeah, the guy's calling me, and now I can pick up the call.
That happens a lot.
Yeah,
like it'll be a home service, or it'll be someone who you just met and you don't have their number, or it'll be someone that you know. I'll just talk to them later, and oh shit, it's important. Oh,
right,
sorry.
Right.
And someone you don't know, and you're like, it's important. So, like it's a cool feature, and it's also an extremely useful feature.
I think what cracks me up about this is that I think it's a great feature and stuff, and the thing is, a lot of people are looking at this particular feature and saying, "Wow, that is so awesome! That's so cool! That's so handy!" And my other knee-jerk reaction is yes. And Android's had it for years.
I know. But again, they're not speaking to the Android folks out there. They're speaking to the people that are in this Apple ecosystem.
Yeah, but the Apple folks in the Apple ecosystem said, "Yeah, Apple is just they did it again. They invented it. This is brand new."
Johnny, anything else impress you from the announcements yesterday?
A couple of things. They're speaking to the Android folks out there all the time, which is why they're getting record switches at the moment. But more importantly, I think my favorite feature, the feature that made me happiest, the one that made me chuckle, this feature by all the features is the best feature, even though it's very Android, name drop. I just thought I like that feature. That is the one feature which I thought was a genius from the naming department. It's so simple and so useful, but absolutely beautiful. Calling it name drop. Oh, that was inspired. And I love the fact that all these features, all these intelligent features, are taking advantage of edge device processing. They're not sharing your information with Meta, anyone. They're not sharing your data with the advertising company. They're not, we're getting a real result of what intelligent devices can do for you while maintaining your privacy, so you do not become something to be marketed at, stamped, numbered, or sealed, or like a prisoner in the prisoner.
I did,
as number 6.
I did notice that as well. That for every new feature that either tracked something or took data from you, like whether it's like we've got more health information for you and all this other stuff, they then made an extra point of saying, oh yes, and your data will be secure, it'll be private, we're not going to share this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like even with the Vision Pro, they're like it's Optic ID to sort of unlock the device, but remember this is not going to go anywhere, so that people aren't going to have an iris scan of my face. Mm-hmm. So there's that balance that Apple has probably done better than other companies, to be honest, in terms of sort of reinforcing that. But with the name drop, like that's the first thing the name drop thing is where I take my phone and I connect to Ramon's phone and boom, we've got our contact information. The first thing I thought of is like, are my teenage daughters, and how if they're going to try to drop a number to someone, it's going to be easier if they want to, but now how do you prevent like the creepy person from sort of getting that phone number? And that's me as a dad of two teenagers.
It's not going to share your number to anyone who's within distance of your iPhone. Like you're still going to have to purposely do it, just like AirDrop.
Right, but we've also seen some stuff where like criminals were grabbing credit card data from the phone from Apple Pay, and there were some stories about security hacks in bars where everybody's all next to each other. Who's to say that someone's not going to sort of like sidle up to a phone and grab a number?
I'm sure that Apple's thought of that. The story you bring up was somebody following someone, getting their passcode, stealing their phone, entering the passcode, changing their Apple ID. It was a very sophisticated system.
Right.
I mean, they showed it in action very briefly, but my guess is it's going to require Face ID at least on one of the ends to launch the service. They're not going. I mean. You're right. If privacy is Apple's game, and it is, that's a major privacy breach. If everybody you walk near, you can get their contact information just by, putting your phone near theirs.
Right. Mm-hmm. But it's also then going to take away the tactic of giving people fake phone numbers.
That's true.
Because we never did that when we were kids.
Use it, though.
It's 555.
I mean, we know. There's always malicious people with malicious intent to look at any system and try and find a way to undermine it. Well, our job as humans is to continue to be aware of that. Our job as journalists is to continue to warn people about that and how to protect themselves. And as parents, of course, we just have to hope that our kids don't share the phone number with the wrong person in the first place, and and just give them a bit of love and some personal responsibility and see where we go from there.
What a great way to end the show.
All
today.
right, so just finally, in terms of the Vision Pro right now, I'm getting a sense that none of us are going to sort of go out and buy it, but the next generation or the third generation, it does feel like we will eventually own one of these things. Am I right on that, or are we going to start saving our pennies in dollars and?
Well, I mean, as the editor of Macworld, I think I might have to.
Well, I'm sure they'll give you a work one, right? Mm-hmm. And IDC, I'm sure you're going to get one, Ramon.
We're hoping, but for my own personal use, come see me in 2025.
Okay. And Johnny, you going to get one, or are they going to just
bring a lot of competitions? I'll be getting a couple of raffles on the go, and I'll be doing a fundraising campaign starting next year for chips in the UK. So please be ready to give generously at that point.
I will probably buy the Vision Joe 2 or Vision Joe 3 when it comes down to about $1,000, then, or maybe 2,000. Maybe then
ladies and gentlemen, stand by for the GoFundMe. So we can get these ones.
Start funding so that Keith and Johnny and everyone else can get a Vision Pro. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Again, thanks for this conversation. It was great to talk with you guys about this. I always love talking about Apple stuff, so thank you, guys.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for today's episode. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and add any comments that you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.